All right, guys. Well, welcome. Welcome to the 1+1 = 3 show. We're super excited to be here. As you can see, we run our podcast, The Young Startup, but we're keeping things very casual with this, specifically because there's no real structure. There's no real timeline. If it goes 15 minutes, excellent. If it goes 30 minutes, excellent. It's more to be natural. It's more for you guys to see who we are. And just be who we are. Be with us, get inside the third mind, which is the intention of the 1+1 = 3 show. So, Brian and I, we're twins, obviously you guys know. For those of you guys who don't know, we refer to ourselves as the Zab twins. We started the 1+1 = 3 show after we were actually in a mastermind, and it was an idea that came up while we were in it. And we were like, what better way to show how twins work than to get inside the third mind. So for those of you guys who are asking questions, what is this third mind? It follows a principle called the Mastermind. It's actually a principle from the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And a mastermind is essentially when multiple minds in a room form together to form an additional mind. So think of it right here. This is the third mind. And what we're essentially doing is we're creating. Yeah, supernatural.
Sorry, one sec. Do you want to grab my my Remarkable that's on my desk? Sorry to cut you off there, but there's a lot of, I took notes at that mastermind that happened, and I want to share, the core principles of what it is. But I think one thing that's important to know, and I'll let you go back in your intro, is you don't need to be twins to do this.
Yeah.
You just need to have synergies within people, whether it be your business partner, whether it be your brothers. A creative spirit in mind at the end of the day is going to leverage a lot. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. With the idea of a mastermind is, we as human beings, we can't be perfect at everything. We can't know everything. We don't have the capacity to learn everything. If Brian's good at, engineering, if he's an engineer, he's an amazing engineer. But I'm really, really good at, something to do in production, right? Maybe I'm a stellar production manager. We complement each other, right? Brian can't be a stellar production manager and be a stellar engineer, right? Because maybe one, he didn't go to school to become a production manager, where I did. And number two, maybe he's specializing in a specific engineering background, right? So the idea around a mastermind is that you're putting great minds alike that complement one another, right? So different, if you want the core of a mastermind is, if you have people who complement each other in different businesses. So in business, if you have one person that's amazing at marketing, one person that's amazing at sales, one person that is amazing on the creative side of things, maybe one person that's really, really good on advertising, right? Specifically working with data. Well, that would work really, really well because, if I'm the marketer and I'm having troubles with something in advertising, obviously those two kind of play alike there, but they can complement each other. So the idea is that when people are in a room, you're creating an additional mind where you guys put all of your minds together to come up with solutions to the problems, right? So it's super, super powerful, and it's sacred, right? What you create in a mastermind is hard to recreate just in any other way. It's important the people are all aligned with what they want to do. It's important that the people that are in the mastermind have all of the same intention, all of the same goal, that they want to come up with solutions to their problems, right? That is the mastermind. So for Brian and I, again, Brian mentioned you don't have to be twins to be a mastermind, but we've always had this, right? And it's funny because a lot of people always ask us, how do you guys get along so well? Do you guys ever fight? The answer is no. And why? We don't know. All we know is that we create something special and we call that our third mind, right? So it's very evident. If you guys know Brian and I well enough, what will happen, or what you'll see if you guys are around us enough, is we start finishing each other's sentences. We come into the office in the morning and we have the same idea. What is that? That's the energy of the third mind, right? So super, super powerful. Brian has some notes here, but we're going to do this every single Monday. We're going to do a Q&A, right? For people who have questions, absolutely, you can fire off those questions. Today, we're going to keep it to a topic, and we're going to keep it to, I guess Brian will probably pull up the questions here, but
I brought up the Facebook. So if you guys do have any questions that come in the chat, feel free to go ahead and drop them in there. Happy to answer them. But I want to go through, some of the elements that essentially make up a mastermind. And again, if you know Eric and I, you'll see why we have this. I call it a superpower, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's literally a superpower. But again, that experience at that mastermind event with our mentor, Armin, our plan was to be there from 10 to 6. We stayed till literally 12:30 because you just couldn't fight the energy. It was crazy. And you might think we're gypsies at this point. You might think that we're spiritual. Whatever you think, all I can say is if you experience this, you'll never want to not experience it. It's something that you're going to want to continuously do. And I think, us being 24, turning 25 this year, the things that we've been able to accomplish, we always wondered how, and then we finally figured out this is why. Okay, so there's 3 massive components that make up a third mind or a mastermind. Okay, number 1 is harmony. What is composed of harmony specifically? Autonomous trust, likability, and a positive mental attitude. No matter the circumstance, you see the good in it. If you have that within someone, if you have autonomous trust, if you like the person and you know that you'll be able to vibe with them, and if you have a positive mental attitude, that is the number one thing. It'll create this harmonious energy in the room that creates this superpower that you just cannot explain. Number 2, it's a definite major purpose. Eric and I, if you guys have listened to us, we are not here to teach people how to sell on Amazon. We're not here to make money. We're here for a reason. We have a purpose to reshape so many things that is just stuck in the stigma of the economy right now. And these are just stepping stones for us to get into them. We're still young entrepreneurs. We're still young in our, not only in our age, but in our entrepreneurial journey as well. So our major purpose is what really, at the end of the day, drives us, right? So what I'll say is if you're doing any form of mastermind session, or you're having someone that you'd like to have a third brain with, have an end piece in mind. Have a purpose in regards to why you're doing it. And number 3 is faith. Believe that something bigger than you exists. Whether that be God, whether that be some form of spiritual presence, whatever that is, just believe and have faith in it, and you will create a superpower like this. I want to share some really cool things that, like, when Armin was sharing these with me, I was like, whoa, like this is, the power of a mastermind, 1 + 1 = 3, has been around forever. Our world is composed of it. Let me give you a couple examples here. H2O. What is composed of H2O? Hydrogen times 2 and oxygen creates water, right? 1 + 1 = 3.
Without 2 hydrogens or without the oxygen, we don't get water, right? So that's the whole concept around it. If one piece is missing, which is why it's so important to have all those different components that Brian went over, if one piece is missing, then there is no water, right? Mind blown.
Exactly. A neutron. What is a neutron composed of? What's the P stand for again?
Proton.
A proton and an electron. Without the proton and the electron together, you would not have a neutron. It's the third brain, right? And the last one, and there's these examples go endlessly. But think about marriage. Think about babies. In order to be married, you need to have two people, and it creates marriage. In order to have babies, you need to have a male and a female, and it creates a baby. This principle has been around for so long, and it creates unordinary things in the world, but it's composed of the earth at the end of the day. So if you guys think one more time, going back to the point that if we're talking spiritual here, if we're talking gypsy here, whatever that looks like, get out of your brain, because at the end of the day, it has been around forever.
It's a thing, exactly. Yeah, it's a powerful thing, and when you can learn to cultivate it, when you can learn to use it to your advantage, that's when it becomes powerful. Because everybody has the ability to do so. You just need to be in the right setting, you need to be in the right space, and that's, in all reality, that's what it really takes, right? It's all about faith, it's all about trusting the process, it's all about, being like, hey, I want to do this, and go ahead and do it, right? But you need the right people, right? It's very hard if you get into a room with people and they're not as committed as you are, because you will be able to feel that the connection that is formed in a mastermind is you start buzzing. You're like, I don't want to sleep. It gives you this natural energy, and that's when you know you're in this harmonious energy. Okay, so super powerful, guys. So, in summary again, the 1 + 1 = 3 show is specifically to get into our mind. We're going to do it in a Q&A style where you can submit questions. You can ask questions along the fly. And that way, Brian and I can mastermind and see what we can come up for you, right? It may not be as powerful as you doing with somebody else because you're not going to be necessarily a part of it. We're not going to be able to take you onto the queue here or anything like that. But it's so that you can get our mind. We are also going to pick topics where we mastermind on them. So I came up with a topic on my drive to work today. I'm like, what's a good topic that Brian and I can chat about that relates to 2022, that relates to anybody that is listening right now? First off, if anybody's listening, you're here for a reason, right? If you're in our group, you're here for a reason, right? So you've came to the right place. The topic that I wanted to talk about today was 2022 goals and New Year's resolutions. And naturally, what we as human beings do is we set these goals at the beginning of the year, right? But if you're not as committed, you naturally, you're going, and you start declining, or you plateau and you start declining. And then you forget about the goals, and then you forget about the New Year's resolutions. It's like the people who want to go to the gym, right? They go to the gym strong for 2 weeks, and then they stop going. Well, why do they do that, right? So I wanted to talk about that because I had an epiphany over the weekend, actually no, it was last weekend, about how we as human beings as well, it's very natural for us to actually go and face adversity. It's very natural for us to be like, okay, you know what, I'm doing really, really well, and then something happens in our life that sets us back, and it kills the momentum, right? There's two things that can happen in that scenario. Number one, you give up, right? You give up, you slow down, and you stop forgetting what you're doing and why you're doing it, right? You stop forgetting about those goals that you want to achieve in 2022, right? So that's number one. And number two, it's either you face the adversity and it makes you stronger and a better person, and you become bigger as a human being. So I wanted to give my example of why I wanted to chat with us today. In 2022 as a whole, my start to 2022 has been really, really rough. Now, I set massive goals for the year. Always set massive goals for the year, right? In 2022, I got COVID. I was out for a week, and then the week after that, I was out for a week completely. Like, I couldn't work at all. Like, I was done. The week after that, I was getting back into the rhythm of things. I couldn't focus. It was so hard to work. That's 2 weeks of the year already. We're only 5 weeks into the year, right? 5 weeks. And then number two, I broke my hand, right? I broke my hand, right? So I've been out now. It's been a week and 2 days, right? And I'm going to be gone. I'm going to be like, I can't type for 4 to 6 weeks. I don't know yet. I'm seeing the specialist on Thursday. But at the end of the day, I was like, you know what? I can be somebody who steps back, doesn't do the things that I need to do, take things slower, and then regain when I'm back into shape. Or I can use this as an opportunity to learn. So one of the things that I did, and Brian can give his perspective on this as well, talking about adversity and goals and everything like that, one thing I do is I always read my goals, right? That's important to me because I'm like, okay, if I'm falling back off of it, I need to be reminded. So I reread those goals, I read them regularly, and it was like, man, I am behind because of what I've faced. And I was just like, I can't let that happen because I have these big goals. 1 week goes by, 1 day goes by, I'm 1 day behind. I need to get 1 day ahead. So how did I become resourceful, right? We talked about this, if you were part of the 5-day challenge, Armin talked about being resourceful, right? When we're in a challenge, when we're in a rut, we have the ability to be resourceful, to be able to come up with solutions, right? Whenever we're in troubles, right? So me being resourceful, I was like, okay, well, obviously I'm at like 60, 70% capacity right now because I can only type with one hand and a thumb. You see me typing, I'm like this. It's really funny. I can't type as fast as I can, and then my hand starts hurting. So what did I do? I was like, okay, I'm going to start looking for things that will type for me. So I found a software. It's called Otter.ai, and it's this really intelligent AI software that I can speak to when I'm doing long things. Like for instance, I was designing a playbook for our ecom brand builder mastermind. It was long. There was a lot of detail in it. So what I did is I just talked to it. I gave it my thoughts, and all I had to do after was edit it, right? It spoke really, really well for me, right? It typed out everything I needed, but I had a lot of fillers in there. So naturally, what I did is I found a solution to my problem of me not being able to type so that I can make sure that I'm pushing forward. So, Brian, what are your thoughts on being resourceful in a scenario where you're not on track for your goals, where you need to...
Yeah. I think I want to go back to getting 1% better every single day. And then I also want to share a lesson that we learned from a 9-figure entrepreneur, because I think it resonates a lot around what it sounds like is momentum, right? And the ability to lose momentum, but also maintain and gain momentum. So there's this book called The Slight Edge. If you're a student of mine, you've heard me say it, you've heard Eric say it. It was probably the biggest book that changed our lives, and it was such an easy read. But it's the power of compound interest. Getting 1% better every single day allows you to get 300% better over a year, if not more than that. So focus on one thing that you can do, whether it be optimizing, whether it be learning something new. If you guys are in the program as well, we have a 14-day challenge, and one of the things is to learn something new every single day. What does learning allow you to do? It allows you to get better every single day, 1% better every single day. Hence why we have that in there. And it doesn't need to be extensive. It doesn't need to be like, hey, get myself in a textbook for 2 hours and learn something, a philosophy or whatever it is. Learn something simple. Again, it's the power of compounding interest. The more you do, the more momentum you have, the farther you continue to do it, you're gonna have and look back at your year and you're gonna be like, God damn, I've done a lot, okay? It impounds, it impounds. Now, the second thing that I wanna share is, if anyone's familiar with Ryan Blair, he owned a company called Vitalis.
Vitalis, yeah.
Which was a MLM,
Multi-level marketing.
Multi-level marketing company. But he built an extremely strong brand. And he exited out of that brand for, I think, over $500 million. Something ridiculous.
735, I think it was.
Yeah, something crazy. Anyways, all said and done, I wanted to make sure I mentioned that because this is a lesson from somebody that a lot of people won't have the opportunity to speak to. And he talked about peaks and valleys, essentially. Momentum, essentially. Okay? As soon as you lose momentum, it takes you double the time in order to get it back. Okay? So one thing to be very cognitive of is gamifying your life. I made a post about this right after this pretty much because it inspired the hell out of me. But gamifying your life. And what he put into perspective was every single goal that you have is a new peak, okay? Once you reach that peak, okay, that's a level, okay? To get to the next level, you need to get to the next peak. But it's so important. And this happened with Eric and I last year. We got very complacent after we hit a massive goal and we're like, damn, I can't believe we did this. We stopped, we relaxed, we took advantage of the money that we had in the bank, and we lost a crazy amount of momentum, and it set us back over a month because of this. And we learned this the hard way. We had a hard conversation with Armin, our mentor, around what this exactly was. And when Ryan Blair was putting into perspective, we're like, damn, that literally happened to us. So it was really powerful, and that lesson hit home. What he essentially said is when you reach a peak, do not go down the valley. Celebrate quickly, not long. Don't go 2-3 weeks celebrating, boozing, buying bottles, whatever that looks like. Celebrate enough to make sure that your mind is aware that you're reaching this goal. But after that, go on to the next peak, go to the next level, gamify your life. If you can consistently do that, you will be one of the highest performing entrepreneurs out there. And I can say that in confidence because you're using the power of momentum, going back to getting 1% better every single day, or compounding interest. It's exactly the same thing. You're using momentum in order to grow. And what that allows you to do is honestly create a third mind for yourself as well. When you have momentum, you have this underlying energy that just sits with you that you just can't explain. But when momentum is good, ride the hell out of that. And by all means, it's gonna slow down, right? And at that point, maybe you can take a step back. But being cognitive of that, and the only way in order to do that is gonna be being very cognitive of your goals. Myself, I write my goals out every single morning. This is my process. I take my annual goals, I write every single one down. Every single one. What does it allow me to do? It frames my mind that I have this goal to hit, okay? I have this goal to hit. I'm not letting it slide past me. I'm not putting it in the dark so that I can look at it at the end of the year and be like, damn, I totally forgot about this. I'll write down every single annual goal that I have. From there, I write down every single monthly goal that I have, okay? That monthly goal needs to line up and work towards my annual goal. And then from there, every single week this morning, I wrote down all of my weekly goals in order to hit my monthly goals. Last month, I hit every single one. I actually exceeded every single one of my goals. In fact, a couple of the goals that I had were quarterly goals and I crushed them in 1 month. Why? I was very cognitive of the fact that I had a goal in mind and I was making daily improvements. I was doing activities to get 1% towards that goal every single day at the minimum. Some days it would be 10%, some days it would be 20%, whatever that looks like. Without you being aware of it, you'll never be able to hit those goals. It's plain and simple.
And that's exactly what the Slight Edge talks about. It talks about being able to take something that looks big, looks ambitious, looks harder to attain, right? And then turning them into smaller goals. And then over time, everything seems much, much easier. So at the end of the day, following, we call it compounding interest, but I call it compounding effort. It's the same thing basically, right? You make things sound a lot smaller, a lot easier by making them much smaller, right? So what seemed non-attainable at the end of the year, whether you have a goal to do $1 million in revenue for it, right? Well, how does, what's 1 million divided by 356, right? How does being able to do that, do every single year, right? Make it smaller, make it look more attainable, and you will trick the mind in being able to achieve something that you didn't think was capable, right? And then that over time, compounding, doing the right actions every single day, day in, day out, knowing that you have an end goal in mind, allows you to get to wherever you want to go to sooner.
Mike had a question in the chat. How do you determine your next goals? First of all, your annual goals, in my opinion, will only change if they get bigger. That's one thing to be super important of. Always work towards your annual goals. You have a frame in mind when you sit down and you reflect on your year before and you reflect on what goals you want to achieve for that year as well. What I've realized over time is you quickly get way better at your job. You quickly become a way better person as soon as you start making an impact on those goals. So what I'd say is, like I said, I hit a quarterly goal within my first month. What did that allow me to do? It allowed me to think bigger, okay? So I think that's one of the biggest components when understanding what your next goal is. It's stretching that muscle in your mind towards your capacity. Again, going into the beginning of the year, you have a frame based off of your last year on what you potentially think you can achieve. Let's say last year, I 4x my income. I now know I have this belief system that's on top of me, and I understand that I can at least 4x my income this year, okay? But let's say within the first couple months, I already 4x my income. Allowing yourself to think bigger and developing new belief systems for yourself will always allow you and lead you to your next goal, in my opinion. But on top of that, do mastermind sessions like this. Get creative, brainstorm ideas, get good sleep and get good REM sleep. That's where your creativity sparks, right? Whenever you have a good idea, one thing that I'll mention before I dive into this a little bit further is don't have shiny object syndrome. So an idea is an idea, right? When you have an idea and you think it's feasible, mastermind about it, take a look at the feasibility and then take action on it. Don't just jump towards it without understanding the feasibility of it. So what I'd say to that, and then Eric can jump in, is one thing is developing a belief system and thinking big. And the second thing would be, just making sure that it's feasible at the end of the day before you want to take action in it. Because the last thing that you want to do is spread yourself too thin and add more goals to your plate throughout the year. And your goals should never stay stagnant. They should always be, very constant or very evolving throughout the year. And they're always going to change. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another big thing as well is you need to have a vision in your life. Where are you going? Not just the short-term goals, not just the long-term goals, right? I set goals in a 10, 5, and a 1-year period as well. And then I break those, 1-year periods and everything like that back down into months, quarters, weeks, days, so on and so forth. So it allows me to visualize what that feels like in the moment, right? Knowing, again, doing the right actions to get to the larger goal. But I have those long-term goals, but it's all driven by a vision. What's my vision in life, right? What's our purpose in life? Once you make a lot of money, you can't be driven by money, right? You get sick of it. Not that that's a bad thing. We need money to be able to live. We need money to be able to buy the things that we need to be able to do what we need to do, what we want to do, right? That's a core component of life. That is, a big meaning of life, obviously. But on top of that as well, you get to the point eventually where it's like, I'm not driven by money anymore. I'm driven by purpose. I'm driven by impact. I'm driven about, seeing our students succeed, trying to reshape what education actually looks like, right? There's so many different things that you need something that excites you so that you can get out of bed every single day, because money won't do it. In the short term, yes, but once you'll realize it. Once you get to that point when money no longer drives you, that's when you will realize it. So that's what I have to say. Brian hit the nail on the head about everything that he mentioned about it, but it's powerful, right? Being able to think about your goals, think about your next goals. And Brian talked about the analogy about, climbing the peak, right? Getting to the top, plateauing, and then going to the top, or going to the next peak, right? Now, the smartest people in the world, right? By the time they're almost like 3/4, 80% up the first peak, they're already thinking about the next peak, right? Why? Because if you plateau at the top there, thinking about the next peak, well, you are going to kill momentum. You are going to slow down, right? Think about and know where you're going after you hit each peak before you finish and hit that peak, right? Plan in advance is really what we have to say. So,
100%.
Yeah, super powerful concept for sure.
Brooke had another question here. Can you have a mastermind with random people you meet? I think this goes back to the 3 things that I mentioned. One is,
I think you can, but they need to be the right people, right? You can't just go pick 3 people off of the street and be like, hey, let's mastermind, because they won't have
harmony.
They won't have harmony.
That means you may not have trust in them. You may not have that likability factor. The worst thing that you can do is have someone where you're button heads with them, right? That's not going to create positive energy. That's going to create negative energy. The second thing is, do you guys have and share a major purpose? Do you have a vision in mind for what that mastermind session is going to be about? Okay. And the last thing was, what was it?
A higher purpose?
One sec. Faith. So,
trusting the process. You find somebody random off the street, will they trust the process? We don't know, because we don't know them, right? You need to be inspired to meet with them, in my opinion, because at the end of the day, like, again, getting people in the wrong room, you won't cultivate that energy. And again, when you feel it, you will know what we mean. You will know what we mean, because it's not like anything else.
The one thing that I'll say is, putting the mastermind that we were in into experience, before we even got into, bouncing ideas off of each other, getting creative, solving problems together, we knew all of these people through Zoom, through chats, through Facebook groups. We knew these people, so we knew them. We trusted them. They were in the same program. They shared the same vision, but there was a lot of things that we still needed to do. And the major component, I think, was the harmony, right? We needed to make sure that we all liked each other. We needed to make sure that we all had a positive mental attitude, and we needed to, show that we trusted each other. So, Army did a great job opening up the floor to share our experiences. Giving an opportunity to share who we are, to share lessons, to give value, things along those lines. And that allowed us to build a lot of harmony within the actual room itself, which put us into a state of a mastermind at that point. So you can do it for sure, like Eric had mentioned, but just keep those 3 components in mind when you're doing that, and make sure that it's aligned.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
So, Harad, another question here. Sorry, what's the name of the book author you recommended? It is called The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson.
Great book. Highly recommended. It's a quick read, too. You can finish it in a couple weeks if you put your head to it. So, it's great. All right, guys. Well, that is the 1+1 show. Again, supernatural. We want to, the idea is that you guys are seeing who we are at the end of the day. And if you have any issues or any problems that you want us to mastermind on, that's what we're here to do. So we're going to be doing this every single week, Mondays at 10 a.m. PST. Again, they could be 15 minutes. They could be an hour. We don't know, right? We're keeping it natural. We don't have a deadline. We don't have a timeline. We are just keeping it natural, and we're just being who we are. So thanks for those of you who have tuned in today. Again, we'll be doing this every single Monday, 10 a.m. PST. So tune in for next week, and we're excited to see you.